of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Bud. Carl. Alan Robbins. Hamilton.
Here.
Pete.
Here.
Ken.
Present.
Alan Michael.
Here.
Jim. Here. Matt.
Okay, you've all had time to read the minutes, if there's no questions or corrections. On the minutes, we need a motion to accept them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and you have the bills. Jerry, you got more bills?
Just got the one that was handed to me here. Okay, with the revision change that was just given to me now, as well as earlier changes I sent to council late this afternoon. Total payables, $46,834.42. 42.
What's your newest one?
I move that the bills be paid from the appropriate account as published and amended.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are you gonna email the newest one?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Okay, before we start, I want to thank Tamitha for a couple things. First of all, the newsletter. That was a great newsletter. It was huge.
Thank you.
So you did a good job. I know that's a lot of work. And I also want to thank Tamitha and Barb and Matt and Debbie, was it?
Debbie Rustick helped out. Yeah.
And Debbie for the field day event the other day. And if you guys, and most of you I know did not see it, you missed one of the best events in the village. And the topper was the frozen t-shirt contest at the end. And the idea was the kids were given frozen t-shirts and they were supposed to put them on and then go back to the finish line and the first one over would win. Unfortunately, the t-shirts were a little too frozen.
Some were still frozen the next morning.
So
if you ever need a block of ice for your cooler, just bring a t-shirt.
So it was really fun to watch those kids try to get those shirts apart. A couple of them finally did. I think one kid ran to the lake. He must have been disqualified for cheating. Dumped his in the lake and get it wet. But anyway, that was worth the watch. Anyway, great job, you guys.
Thank
I hope
you.
you repeat that event. Okay, now we'll start with Alan, safety.
Sure. We have Deputy Hardy with us today. First page is just a monthly report. Finally, got our computer issues resolved. And so April, targeted at 80 hours, 58 work. Within the red zone, and also in May, 100 hours targeted, 86 work. Two bigger issues with that is Deputy Cornelius, which is usually about 30 hours a month, is on an extended disability. We did pick up Deputy Yarborough. We started in May, picked up 32 hours. But also Officer Small, Lieutenant Small, who had been our backup guy, had to pull away from the deputy hours. So, Jim, do you think we'll be getting close to coming in the rest of the summer?
Unknown. I'm gonna get 50 hours this month, so that'll make up for 20 to 30.
Okay. So we'll get closer.
Yeah.
So they're working hard. Which obviously they have other responsibilities, SWAT and other activities, you know, that new officer Yarborough in our neighborhood SWAT. appreciate the work that they do. For April, RA at 27, King at 25. And May, 30 for RA, 24 for King, 32 for Yarko. I'll kind of go over the activities. I'll start with April. Drunk intoxicated person 1, disturbance or fight 1, flight ambulance request 1, vector control 70, victory watches 26, suspicious person 1, harassment phone or text 3, lockout 1, 911 hang up 1, canceled call or accidental call. So that's the next one. Assisted other agencies 1, building checks 3, citizen assist, standby directions 2, custody dispute 1, power outages, electrical problem 1, follow-up 2, golf cart inspection 1, motor vehicle crash with injuries, move it down, notifications 1, suspicious circumstances 1, violation of protection order 1, threats 1, traffic complaint reckless operation 1, traffic stops 4, lines down, wires issued 1, total of 128. That's fairly active month for that. Going into May, activated entry, alarm entry 1, special detail 1, domestic 1, disturbance or fight 1, squad ambulance request 5, action controls 88, fight control 1, suspicious vehicles 1, problem individual 1, lockout 1, 911 hang up 1, cancel call 1, assist other agencies 1, building checks 2, custody dispute 2, call 1, fraud, identity fraud 1, follow up 2, golf cart inspections 3, motor vehicle with injuries 1, loud party noise complaint 1, parking complaint violations 2, traffic stops 1, welfare checks 1, total 101. Any areas in there that we are that you've got additional complaints?
No,
Anything from council?
Do we have a bike patrol now?
well, the sheriff's department has a bike patrol for the whole county, but we don't have one just for the village.
Okay.
Yeah, we have, the state of Ohio case, I think there's 4 guys, overtime to patrol different neighborhood events, 4th of July parade, they'll be out, different things like that.
I think we were down to Memorial Week.
Yeah.
Anything from council? Anything from the audience?
I have a question,
Barb?
Leslie.
Leslie, I'm sorry.
Who did the park ranger police answer to? The sheriff's department, the city?
So, they have their own, headquarters, the Deerview there, they have their own chief. Their jurisdiction is the parks and the lake. So, they don't answer to us. They're like their own little police department that handles the parks and the lake properties.
Thank you.
You would give agency assist if they were requested. So it
Or they
depends on
get
the
us
circumstances of the event. But yeah, they're standalone police force. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's the way it's set up. That's the reports to the director. Yeah.
So if you do a 911 off of the lake, does it go through the sheriff's department or through the central thing, or does it?
They're dispatched through our dispatch center.
Dispatch would make that decision, depending on available resources. I don't know if it's off the lake, if it's a 911 call, it would probably go to the park district first. If there's no one available, it would probably go to Medina City and then Medina County. And that all might happen simultaneously, really. Whoever's close to wherever the incident is described. And when you're on the lake, it could be in Westfield Township, it could be Glory Glen, Lafayette, or the park district. Not sure how it is, but they send up pretty much all of the
somebody who slips by their spot. The golf cart accident, is that the motor vehicle accident that's in that?
No,
The one in, May, yes.
For Willowwood and Briarwood,
Yeah, that we couldn't find. Sure somebody knows something about
you have to be,
any other questions?
I'd like to say if, it is against the law to let juveniles drive these golf carts. If you're a parent and you let them drive them, you can get charged with wrongful entrustment, which is an M1. So keep that in mind. Don't let your kids, don't let anybody drive these golf carts unless they have a license.
and then if they're a 16-year-old licensed driver, they have to follow the same rules as if they were in a car, right?
Yeah, driver's license, same exact laws and rules as if you're driving a motor vehicle.
Same thing with car seats.
Andy?
Going to point out, car seats, I went over this with Deputy Easterday a long time ago. If you have low back seats and you put a kid in on a car seat, you know, not the big fat ones, but the ones that are just a seat, they're up so high that they have no support on their back or their neck. And it is much safer for them to be sitting on the seat without that car seat elevating them. And he said, you know, that is correct. And then any of the deputies saw that you had a situation like that, there won't be a problem. And if it is, they'll get thrown out when you go in court. It comes down to, it's gotta be safer not to use the seat than it is to use the seat. So you better be ready, if you're a resident, to convince the deputies that that's what applies in your situation. You know, we've got one grandchild that still really does apply to. Would you continue to agree with that? That safety is the key thing?
I'm smart enough to determine if a kid is safely in a golf cart. I'm not gonna go black and white, by the exact laws. Have your kid buckled in and safe and you'll be fine.
Some of that's the operation of the golf cart, so if you would see an unsafe operation and you got a child in there, you've got different degrees of risk going on.
Chippewa.
Right. There was just a ruling, you passed it on to me from Ohio State Highway Patrol. Some of it was on the unicycles, probably the issue, and those are legal. But that's where I got the 45 mile an hour thing. So,
Please.
Okay, we'll move on to the fire department, and we have acting chief Bolton. He might have some news for us.
Hello, I know information. You got the report already. We had 66 calls in the month of May, 6 fires, 46 EMS runs, 4 hazmat, 7 good incident calls, 2 false alarms, and 1 special event, a total of 66. We were in Chippewa Lake 6 times in the month of May. Quite a few mutual aid calls that we responded to this past month. So turnout time, 2 minutes, 9 seconds. That's up a little. That kind of depends on if it's night runs. If we have more night runs than we had the previous months, people are getting out of bed. And if it's a fire call, so they're not only getting out of bed, they're getting fully dressed in gear before they roll out the door. So, I mean, unless we start looking at each, and we do look at it, actually, we look at every call. We review every call our people go on. And, the average is real good, and the travel time, 5 minutes, 9 minutes, pretty much average, so. We had a nice training over at there was a house on Valley Shore that was gonna be demolished, and they let us get in there and train for a whole day. We had a great day. They even cooked lunch for us, they barbecued, food and gave us the best baked beans I've ever had. And I'm not a big baked bean guy. I went for seconds. So. And talking about training, we don't train just the 2 times. Our people train almost every day that they're there, even just the 3 of them together, they get together, either talk about things depending on the weather, or they'll actually do some physical things right there in the firehouse. Just the 3 or sometimes one of us will get involved with them too. So updates. So we did have a car put on our boat, and we're waiting to get together. The new chief and I are gonna get together with Chuck Stiver, and he's gonna really tell us how we should handle it. So we've got the canvas design, and we hope to get it in the water sometime this month. It'll be docked, like I said before, right by Craggy Creek. And beach side over there. We got a new medical director from the Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Minotti. We already met with him. He's great. I mean, he's important. I mean, you see how many runs we had that were medical runs. So we concentrate on our medical updates, knowledge, practice. The doctors review a lot of the calls we get and give us little hints and corrections, or whatever they feel is necessary to keep us on our toes as far as medical runs go. Higher testing is complete. Finished that up finally when the weather finally got more cooperative. We got a new positive pressure fan, which is kind of a big deal. They're kind of expensive. $4,800, I think that was a deal, because there was somebody bought 2 fans and they bought a fan, but they sent 2, so they had a fan, and they called us up and said, hey, if you want a fan, get a deal. So we got a fan. It's all battery, no gasoline engines. It's much quieter. You can communicate better when it's running, and it doesn't. Gasoline engine produces carbon monoxide, and this fan actually will push carbon monoxide into the house. So with the electric fans, you don't have any of that. We helped out with the golf parade for Memorial Day, running the Village Social, and we're looking forward to the 4th of July parade, which is not that far away. So that's my report. Any questions? No questions, Dave? Well, I'm able to introduce our new fire chief, which we decided on recently. We had 3 interviews, and we had 3 very good interviews, but this man stood head and shoulders above the rest. So this is Brian Kavanaugh. He's going to be our new fire chief starting in a couple weeks.
Excited to.
That one we know. It's the 3 number ones.
Russ,
And we have 2 number 1s, and we also have 1 single digit.
And I've driven the neighborhood quite a bit, so if you see a black truck.
Guys just driving around trying to figure.
The numbers go up one side of the street and back down the other side of the street.
Very good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's still confusing, though, really.
It is terrible.
Yeah, we get it, but I always thought when they, probably 100 years ago, when they started some of those, they had a dartboard, and they just,
Yeah.
I guess there was a little bit of luck with it.
Well, a couple things. I wanted to thank Tim Holtzman for his service. He pitched in when the position came open. And he's had to do that before, but he does an exemplary group, not only for us as a community in communication, but also with the staff there also. Brian was on the search committee or the interview committee as Tim was and others. And Brian's got an exemplary background, a number of years as foreman in the Marine, did active duties in West and now us. And he's a career firefighter, EMS person. So I'm pleased to have him. Been with the Polar this last year. Departments are looking for staff, so he's reaching out to high schools, trying to find anything else you want to do to fill in the blanks there for?
Like you said, I was military for 25 years, been out of fire for 24 years. I also taught school, so I'm passionate about bringing in new recruits and learning, teaching and learning, and being a mentor and developing firefighters for the future. So that's what we did in Westfield, and it was very successful. We turned that department around quite a bit, and I'm hoping to do that. This department's already got a great foundation, and I'm hoping to expand on that and develop the officers and develop the department moving forward. So thank you.
Yeah. What?
No, I just wish them good luck.
Just to give you an example, the numbers I read, 66 total activities for the department, fire department, 46 is EMS. So that's indicative of EMS activities for what we do. So 2/3 of the fire activities. And many people in this room have been involved with that, and we know they can be life-saving and very critical at the time. And seeing that they turn out in a little over 2 minutes and they're disappointed with that, that's pretty good. 5 minutes to travel down. So be safe. Since we have a good crowd here, if you ever meet one of the fire chiefs, you probably don't know them, but as a way of introduction, to say, what are your certifications? And they'll tell you the 2 or 3 things, and I'll let you know a little bit more about that lady or man and what they do in their activities. And it kind of gives you a community bond with them, because it looks like you're paying attention and interested in what they do, because they work very hard for that. Anything else?
No.
Any questions from the audience?
I'm just glad we hired a good chief.
We got a good one. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well, the further siren activities.
Okay. Okay, we'll go to zoning.
Zoning report for June, non-department task. We got anything new, different?
Yeah, nothing really new, but the owner hasn't done anything. I've been informed to improve it. He still owes money to the court for his last round with us for costs and fines. Sorry about that. Yeah, he owes $800 in fine money and $112 in court costs. And the court has given him a final deadline of July 28th to pay it. I've tried to reach him this year without success. I was able to talk to him last year and talk about his plans and lack of plans. There is a person interested in the property, and I have given that person contact information for the owner, Michael Florjancic, and we'll see if anything comes of that. But other than that, there's no improvement.
Are we following on this one?
That's up to council. If you want me to refile charges, he still owes the fine money from the last round. I've had him in court 5 times, 5 or 6 times total. He's paid a lot of money to the court, which I would prefer he paid toward improving the property. But, at this point, all we can do is charge him, try to give anybody else assistance if they're interested in the property, and try to put them in contact with him. If we could get a building inspector into the property and see if it's condemnable to be demolished.
Excuse me, there's a note on the door that says it is condemned.
It's condemned for occupancy.
Okay.
Because of the mold and the water damage, you can't live in it. It's not condemned to demolish it.
I see.
So that's a step we could take. We'd have to get an expert in there, a building inspector.
If you would ever contact us and let us in.
Well, I think at this point with a police officer, we could go in for an inspection purpose. But that's a drastic step. A lot of houses may look pretty bad, but they could be salvageable. And the building inspector would be looking at it, can it be rehabilitated or is it a loss?
But some of that was determined by the health department.
No, it's determined by the building inspection department.
When this goes in front of the courts, is it heard by a magistrate or a judge?
Magistrate,
Can you request a judge?
no. But the magistrates have given us attention. I mean, last go around, he got $800 in fines. It's not like they're ignoring us. But all they can do is impose a fine.
One suggestion that I think we discussed was talking to contractors that would come in and do the work and then name them and have them put on his tax bill.
Yeah, that could be done, but that means the village has to front the money.
Right.
And with the damage that it sounds like there is in there, all we'd be doing is
Well, at least
making a gift to the owner.
the outside part of
Right.
if the outside was taken care of, the inside, whatever happens, happens.
Right.
Why would we want to fix it up for the guy?
Yeah.
Easier to just keep finding him.
Well, it's just the appearance of it. It at least look like it belonged in the neighborhood and not in the hood.
That's an option, but I don't see why you should spend money on it either, since it benefits the owner only. And he doesn't seem to be interested in the property or capable of moving on it.
What happens if we appeal the magistrate's decision?
Well, so far we've only won, and you don't appeal when you win.
I'm just.
Yeah, I mean.
Looking to get it, okay, we're appealing because the fine's not high enough.
Well.
They get it in front of a judge, though, right?
No.
Not necessarily?
No. The only way we get from a magistrate to a judge, if we claim the magistrate made a mistake and we want to appeal to the judge. And frankly, I'm not sure that's the amount of the fine doesn't seem to affect this person.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, he's paid lots of fine money.
Is he current our fines or not?
He owes $800 in fines to the court, which he has to pay by July 28th.
To us,
No, to the court.
to the court?
A lot of it will come back to the village,
Okay.
but it is paid through the court. And curiously enough, this person is up to date on his mortgage and taxes.
So, but you can't lien him for your fine?
Well, we can put a lien on his property for any work we do on the property.
You can't lien him for fine?
Well, no, but the court will make sure he pays the fines. I mean, they have the power of jail.
Yeah, but if you can lien him for fines and then start the clock on interest for that, and then foreclose.
Well, the fines originate with the court. We can't put them as a lien on the property. And they go after the person for the fines. I mean, in the past where we've cleaned up areas and, fixed up places at the village expense, sure, we put a lien on the property right away. But you can't do it for fines.
When you're talking to the magistrate, they came up with a $1 fine. We can't, searching for the word, we can't go in and make them do action to do the correction. You just base the fine as he always has.
Right.
The last 5 or 6 years and doesn't do anything.
Right.
So there's no mechanism for you to have the magistrate make him do something.
Just impose a fine and court
That's it.
costs. That's it.
Do the fines get higher each time?
I don't have that with me, but I would say, yeah, because the magistrate is tired of seeing this guy. I mean, it's not, I think they've probably gone up each time. And now it's $800.
What's been your experience on these ones that drag out like this?
My experience has been that somebody will come along and acquire the property and fix it up, or eventually they'll get to the point where a village has to have it demolished because it's a hazard. Now it's a hazard if you go inside, and the health department will only get involved if there's a health hazard that's beyond the inside of the building. Like, maybe if the building's about to fall out or, has infestation of vermin, if there's odors coming from it that you can smell outside the building, that's when they get involved.
How did we eventually get the Langenfeld property corrected?
Eventually, it went up for sheriff's sale.
We cited him over and over and over again.
Did the roof line or something that went inside the house?
Yeah, there was exactly how that worked. I think
We had the building department and the health department both went in and inspected.
we did, and I think the reason it was sold at auction was because of the mortgage, I think. I'd have to look. But if we do work on the property and put a lien on the property, we could file a foreclosure. It's cumbersome, it has some expense, and either not paying the taxes, not paying a mortgage, not paying liens like we could put on the property if we worked on it, all those could lead to a sheriff's sale. And I believe that property was sold at sheriff's sale.
We don't have any real leverage since he's current on taxes.
Right. Yeah, in some cases, I've gone to the prosecutor's office and said, this is a problem house, there's a lot of taxes due on it. Would you go after it for taxes? And sometimes they do.
Well, my train of thought was getting into part of the correction of the outside and at least making it neighborly, and then we've got a dog in the fight at this point. And if he doesn't pay for those liens, then we can go through the route of foreclosure.
We could, and if he
Some leverage.
pays the liens, then we're done with
There's
that.
only one lien on it right now that's not paid though, right? So liens is not the right word.
Well, no, there's no liens on it that I know of
It's
that
up
aren't
to
paid.
$800.
That's a fine from the court. It's a,
I don't think it's fair to the neighbors to have to look at that like that, and I think we should be able to at least clean it up to a minimum, so that it's been going on for how many years? It's not fair to those neighbors to have that house like that.
we've done that with some properties. And we have to notify the owner and then give them a correction period, and then when they don't correct it, we can correct it. And our cost can go as a lien on the property. We've done that.
So it's not been mowed or anything, is that what we're saying? I haven't
There's
been mowed.
no gravel with vines growing up the side of it.
It's ridiculous.
Well, there's a car in front that's got like plates on it, 2021. With a flat tire.
Took us 5 years to get the fence kicked out.
Yeah. You want to take a look at that car, Jim?
And yours before, I didn't send that to you.
I don't have it. I don't think so.
We can add that to the, we got at the point of where we were on the inspection, I normally got one.
Mhm.
We can add that to some charges.
Sorry, it's a maze up here.
Yep.
Every time we go over there, I take pictures, well, not every time, but at least once a month.
So what do we have to do to get the building inspector and health department in there?
If
At least take that step.
If everyone will recall, I've talked to the building department. It was inspected. They determined it's not unsafe, it's been properly secured, and they will not take any further action.
How long ago was that? A year ago?
Some months ago,
I feel like it was 6 months ago.
Was that when we had the police go in?
shortly after.
Yeah.
That was me and the inspector, we did an outside inspection. And he said, if you can get me inside, I'll come back and inspect it.
What he told me was he
had a detailed conversation with the supervisor. He passed along his findings. And as a result of that conversation, they have no further interest in the matter at this point.
They did have interest in a property I had in Glory Glen, just to tell you how far this can go. We had an owner that was living in the house sometimes, otherwise out of state for work, and she got to the point where all her utilities were cut off. No utility service to the property at all. And when she'd come back and live in the property, she'd heat it by burning wax. And she caught the house on fire and badly burned one side of the whole house. You could see through where the rafters were burnt from the wall. You could look out at daylight. And it turned out she was living in a tent in the living room of the property off and on. And we did get a building inspector to tell us it needs to be demolished. We gave notice. We found a time when she was not in the house because the sheriffs wouldn't remove her from the house unless she was a harm to herself or others. Then they could pink slip her, but they wouldn't do that. And we had the inspector's report, so we went through, got an order of condemnation, and we took the house down. It's gone. But that takes time, a lot of time, and a lot of notices, and it's a drastic step because that's somebody else's private property. But we did it with one house in the Glens.
And that expense went to the village, and then it went to the lien on the property.
Right.
Did it ever get paid?
Well, with the village, because it went up for sale and nobody wanted to buy it, the village ended up owning it. So whatever the village pays, gets somebody to buy it for, will go to pay off the expenses. I doubt that it'll be enough to pay the expenses because it's non-buildable under current zoning. It's a vacant lot. The only value it would have would be to neighbors. And they haven't decided to put it up for sale yet.
Could we just, from a community standpoint, get the yard mowed and the minimalistic kind of things to bring it around for the neighbors? I don't know if there's, staining paint, if we can get a church or somebody like that to do it from a volunteer standpoint.
You could, I'd have to give notice to the owner. I do have an address for him. Well, if I give him the notice and the time period to correct, and he doesn't correct, then we can do that. Otherwise, it is trespassing.
Well, I think you ought to give notice so we can take some kind of action by the next council meeting.
Okay?
Need a resolution for it?
No, I'll just.
In the form of a letter or in order to correct or?
Well, I'll give him a notice. There's a special notice to give him that he has to correct X, Y, and Z, and if he doesn't, the village will do it at his expense. So all I need is somebody with the knowledge of it to tell me what are the things we want to correct.
I can give you details of that.
Please, I'll do that.
In that process, Jen, can you maybe give an idea of the budget amounts for mowing or paint, or whatever you're talking about?
That's all right with you?
Some ideas on what we're talking about.
But you're the chief law enforcement officer.
One of them.
Maybe
Do
you don't vote, you can tell
Yeah,
me
do
to do it.
something.
Okay, we'll do that.
I'll cover number 2 on the charts, 227 Weston Brook. And that's in court as well. Has that been anything resolved?
Is that the one with construction material?
Yes.
That owner's been taken to court twice. Been found guilty of violating our code, and in one case was fined $292, and in the other case was fined $200 in court costs. It's unpaid now, and shortly the court will be summoning him into court to answer for his unpaid fines. But that's a total of $492 in fines and $112 in court costs. I assume nothing's changed?
Nothing.
Are these correctable things, similar to what we were talking about with 9 Parkway Path?
Sure.
This person living there.
I don't know where this person is. Sometimes I drive by and see a different vehicle there, sometimes I don't see any change whatsoever. There's a stack of roofing material in the driveway that goes down into the right of way. It's almost, 3 feet off the side of the road. And it's been sitting there for a year or better now.
I was told that, that roof is gonna go up in the next couple months. That's what I was told. So July.
It seemed like it's in the right of way, we would have the ability to take action.
You can move it out of the right of way anytime, because that's village property. That's another case where if we give the guy a notice, the village could pay to have that material removed, if that's what you want to do. I mean,
All aluminum, right? So it is recyclable.
I don't know if it's aluminum.
It's roofing material.
Steel material, or it's I don't know. Standing seam roof. That's it.
What was that?
Standing seam roof. And he started it at the time that I gave him the notice. He was just starting it that day on the roof. And I said, you have to do something about this. And he said, I'm gonna get the roof done. And I said, well, it looks like you have no issues, but I'm gonna give you this order to correct anyhow. And that started the whole thing.
Well,
After that day, he left everything and walked away from it.
When was his last court date?
yeah.
Resale.
Last court date was April 12th.
Well, let's go again. Find him again.
Alan,
Yes.
he told me he was putting.
I'm looking at the county auditor's website.
He's been out of town.
There's a number of delinquent
So he's been,
assessments,
but that's his intention.
listed there for that particular property.
Yeah.
Is that in any kind of foreclosure?
Last time I checked, it wasn't, but I can check on it again. I haven't checked for a while.
It's on the listings under the auditor's website. It would kind of indicate to me that something's afoot.
Yeah, I'll check and see.
Can we move those materials to someplace where it's back towards the house? I mean, if we remove the materials and it's say I can't finish the roof because you took my materials, I'm trying to
Right.
move it off of village property someplace closer to it.
Yeah, then we move it off. And he says, you scratched on my material, you owe me new material.
Not if you give him a corrective order, right? Give him time.
Right, if we give them a notice and an order and a deadline, we can just dispose of it.
You usually give them 30 days.
Depends on the case, but that's reasonable.
Do you have a different address other than the one that is there, 227 Russell Road? That's the only address that I found.
Yeah, I don't know. He goes to court.
That's the only one showing on the website.
What about this part you have in last month's minutes about the guy who filed for bankruptcy? So everything.
That was a different property,
It says 227.
does it? Oh, okay.
It was,
Sorry about that.
I thought it was up for, it was up for sure sale and then he ended up.
That's right, that's right. He filed for bankruptcy, which put everything at a standstill. But eventually the bankruptcy court will let them put it up for sale again. And they should do it soon. That doesn't stop us from corrective action, that notice to clean it up, but it stops a bankruptcy temporarily.
So just posting on the property, or is that something that should be mailed
For new charges, or
for correcting
is that what you want to do?
removing the material?
Is that what you want to do?
You need to give him corrective, give him 30 days to get it out of there, then you're in a tenuous situation, like Jim says, if he says you damaged it, then you ought to remove material, or you could, move it back onto his property, or you could move it to someplace where it's secure. You're just in a rock and hard space. When you have these people that have mental health issues and these kind of things, it just makes it extremely difficult to negotiate with them.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So do I post on the property that needs to be corrected, it needs to be moved?
Used or removed, used for the roof or removed?
No, he did say that he's gonna, his intention is to put it up in the next couple months, but.
Well, we know how sometimes that becomes the next couple years.
Exactly.
You know, what does council want to do about this? We could cite him into court again. He owes fines and court costs, which he hasn't paid yet, which will eventually, the court will bring him in and tell him.
And what is your suggestion, since
My
we
suggestion?
pay you the big bucks?
I would say, let's give him the notice to clean it up. Let's file another case in court and hope that that gets his attention. And in the meantime, the bankruptcy court may release it to be put up for auction again, which would probably be the best scenario. Let somebody buy it who will fix it up.
Yeah.
So I'll do that if you wish.
I think that's a good idea.
So that's two things, you're giving them a notice of correction, and then you're also citing it.
Right, into court for violating.
What's there, and then I'm giving them another notice.
I don't think you get any action from the courts other than fines, you don't get the problem corrected at all. So
Well, that's true. No.
I'd rather get something that's gonna push them to where they do something or we have to do something.
Well, if he's filed for bankruptcy, let's determine this. Has he filed for bankruptcy?
Yes.
All right. Assessing a guy more fine
Yeah.
accomplishes what? Nothing. So give him an order to move his material out of the right of way. I personally have strong adverse feelings about unnecessarily filing criminal actions or civil actions against someone who is struggling in life and overburdening the court to what we recognize as no viable benefit. You can't make a crazy person uncrazy because you file a court action. You can't make a person who's filed for bankruptcy reach in their pocket and pay a court fine to what end? To what purpose? Well, let's say if we know for certain he's got a bankruptcy action filed, tell him to clean up, move it out of the right of way and be done with it. He's got far bigger problems to deal with than what we have.
That was on the original notice. The order to correct was to move the materials because they're not allowed to be stored outdoors. That's in the code.
I understand.
So all I'm doing is doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result, which is the definition of crazy. Insanity.
Well, but I guess, I don't disagree with what your thought process is, but if we do in fact get another judgment on him, he's gonna have to sell a property if it goes into bankruptcy, whether it's a sheriff's sale or something else. And you have some ability with that, with our liens on it, that would recoup that money to the village.
We don't have any liens on the property at this point.
No, but if you did, well, is the fines, are those, if they don't pay the fines, those just wash away?
They answer to the court on that.
That's court action.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with the village.
And the first thing the court does is, they send a notice to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles not to renew any registration in his name until the court fines are paid up, because they have that power. They call him into court, they can threaten him with jail. But that's independent of what we do. But I totally agree with what Bud had to say there. I mean, a lot of these people do have some mental problems.
You know, maybe the gentleman needs to have a couple of options of, you know, yes, you're in violation. How about getting some help? Getting your material stacked up in a neat, orderly, non-violent, encouraging situation and covered. As so not to be an eyesore to the village and your neighbors. And give the person a little bit of time to get his act together and get things squared away. Maybe some people in the village would feel inclined to help, maybe not, but it does give him, you know, more than one option.
I agree. That's a good way to go. I know he's been working out of town a lot. He works on the railroad.
Yeah.
You know, and you can
Extended
get,
period of time.
and you can get immediate action that way.
So can you send him a letter that says that, Alan?
Sure.
The rest of you agree with that?
Let's try that.
Start.
Yeah. Well, a lot of time when people go into bankruptcy and it gets set for a sale, they just give up, they wash their hands. And that's what I expect to happen here. Although going to bankruptcy at least was a positive step on his part, but it stopped the action against him, gives him some breathing time. Okay.
Well, we'll move on. 419 Northville Drive, notice posted for exciting on the house and the project, and the finish date was May 31st, 2023. And as of now, the work is completed 99%. There are a few odds and ends that need tied up, but it should be completed 100% soon. So I am going to take that off the list finally. 273 Rustic Brook, a notice posted for roof soffit repairs, siding, deck, railings, those sorts of things. Most have been corrected. The owner is planning to prepare the surfaces for the stain this weekend and will stain next week. He's also planning to remove the railing and correct the issues, the deck issues. Had a conversation. So we'll see how that works. On to permits. 23-011 is 360 Craggy Creek Drive. That is the permit for the conditional use, the hearing that you had last month for the parking the RV in the driveway and the conditions that you asked me to do. I applied in the letter. 23-012 at 173 Rock Ridge Road was a permit for concrete patios and a walkway. 23-013 at 212 Rustic Road was a permit for a concrete patio. 23-014 at 156 Heatherhead Drive was a permit for a fence. 23-015 at 170 Circle Crest Drive is a permit for concrete patios and a walkway. The last thing on the list is the variance hearing for Igor Lane property is owned by Jennifer Root. Are the owners present?
Yeah.
And
She'll be doing all the talking.
okay, she's prepared. So I gave you exhibit A. This is
drawing, and the request on the application was that council consider, I'm sorry, do you want to open this before I?
No, you're doing fine.
Thank you. The council would consider using the measurements of the foundation as opposed to what our code says, that measurements are to the overhang, which all in all would give them a foot cushion all the way around the home, which they had said it adds up into square footage. So.
Let me ask you to state, so the variance that's requested here is on the setback distance on all four sides of the house?
Correct.
And because you want to measure from the foundation rather than the overhang, that really amounts to a foot on each side of a variance.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. And you're the owners, Robert and
Yes. I'm Robert, and this is Jennifer.
Jennifer. Root, would you raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me add, just to get back to the format, do you have something you want to say to the village council about this?
I think Jim kind of covered it already. It does affect the buildable square footage. We just want to maximize that. In most communities that we build homes, we're landmark homes. In most communities that we build, we find that they typically use the foundation as the setback mark rather than overhangs, soffit gutters, things like that. So it is a little bit unusual to use the overhangs. So that's kind of why we're here, just saying, hey, would you consider using the foundation rather than the overhangs?
Do you have a background in writing this code as why it went to the overhang?
No, I don't.
And
It was put in the code way back when.
can I speculate what my thoughts are? Because the lots are so narrow, if you were to measure to the foundation and then have a 5-foot overhang on each side of your house, then and therefore you're creating a hazard. If your structure is to go up in flames, you're definitely going to catch your neighbor on fire. I thought that might have been an option.
And it might make it more difficult for safety vehicles to get in there, police, fire.
But that was all I could think of, because I wasn't on it.
Right. Are there any neighbors here present? Or people, anybody that wants to say anything about this application? State your name. Go ahead.
Mark Reeder. Council has always been very generous with their zoning variances, but it's always been on something where somebody needs a foot on one side. I think this is ridiculous for a foot all the way around. I mean, we have the rule, that's the rule. We've got to live by it, especially since it's new construction. You know, if we want to change the ordinance, then we need to change the ordinance. But to me, a foot all the way around, it was designed that, oh, we're going to go to council and we're going to get this variance. It wasn't oversight or something like that. You know, this is, to me, this is taking advantage of the village.
In the back? Yes, sir.
I got a question, Scott Donaldson. I live across the street from the property. And Keith, I think there are no storm sewers on Legal, are there?
There's not many.
So my concern is I'm already taking on water from the vacant lot. So when they build it up, how are they going to route the water so that it doesn't come in my garage and in my driveway as it is now? Needs to be some way to tie that in off the drain pipe.
Okay, there are a few storm sewers by, up the road by Lake Road that have storms that go up that way. Heading toward the lake, that's still been a lot of swales that are non-existent, and virtually there are no functional storm sewers.
So it's kind of landlocked, so I'm wondering how you're gonna grade that, or I'm gonna have to grade my driveway.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is,
you can weigh in on this. My experience in stormwater is that the community is responsible for handling the stormwater that's brought down to the right of way in front of the house, unless there's an alternative.
Right.
But it's the village's responsibility to handle that stormwater. You can't stop a construction project from going in because you don't have, the ditches that used to be there are no longer there or are interrupted by driveways.
They're not non-existent. They're overgrown and pretty much,
You know, on our end, of going on the lake end, storm sewers are on our street. They've been growing, but they're not all the way there. And the same thing I think applies to Lebor. But, you know, their drainage is, has to be dealt with by the village. It's a village responsibility to ensure that they have an outlet for their storm drains.
Their responsibility is to get the stormwater to the street. And our code says something like to the nearest available public drainage system, which is what we're talking about here. The systems can be lacking. And also their responsibility is not to divert it onto their neighbors. But you're right about the village maintaining water drainage on the right of way.
okay.
The only storm sewer I'm familiar with, and I'm not a use or the other people, is really at the corner of each side and that's where one there. And there is a drain from one of my driveway to right at the edge of it. There's a culvert, what's called, that goes under that storm sewer. That's the only one that I'm aware of.
Is that, the last step, when I drove the village of Chippewa and located where all the catch basins are. The only catch basin we have is, as you said, at the intersection of Lemoore and Beachside.
Well, there's one at Lilo and Chippewa too. They put it in recently.
Otherwise, it's just swales on Lemoore, with the exception of your ditch at Chippewa.
Right. Other than that, there's just always been open swales, period. And part of that problem has been due to grade, that you can put a storm sewer down to a legitimate depth, but you'll be below lake grade. So that if the lake goes up a foot, you're gonna acquire about a foot in some places in your property.
It's also a very low lying area, but.
Yeah.
It's below the flood.
I can dig down a foot in my front yard and I hit water, so you're not gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
So my concern is where's all this water gonna go? That's in my garage.
Were there any other comments
I had a comment.
or questions?
I'm an adjoining parcel and, I don't have any issues with what's going on with anybody building, but it seems to me like, this variance request keeps coming up for many people building homes. So maybe it's time that we revisit the guidelines because, I mean, I had the same issue up on the circle and I mean, if we continue to grant the variance, we're changing the code anyway.
And that's built into zoning codes as an option, because they can't always be applied rigidly, but, I see your point.
And it's specifically, we're talking about the building line, versus the gutter line.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I feel like this comes up often and a lot of times, I don't know that I've ever seen it. Not
I think Jim's right on why it's written that way.
right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He doesn't want somebody that to go to the foundation and get a foot variance on their foundation location and then put a 6-foot overhang.
Right.
You'd have to limit the overhangs to a foot.
That would help.
So you have to say, okay, the overhangs can only be a foot, and that's it. So if you're gonna change one thing, you really kind of need to change something else along with that.
Any other comments, questions? Yes.
Yeah, I do agree, the ordinance should be changed. Chippewa Village, the ordinance is, I think, very much of an outlier. I think in most jurisdictions, the foundation. And I don't agree with the historical interpretation because if you think of it front to back, that does not pose a fire hazard.
Well, it was written in 1982, so it was a while back.
Was it Briarwoods or Chippewas?
This is Chippewa's, Briarwoods was merged into Chippewa.
I know, but that's the way that it went, though. It was started out as
Oh.
Chippewa on the lakes.
Right. I don't know what Briarwood had, but Chippewa on the lake used to have like a 3-page code that was mostly about building materials.
Briarwoods wasn't much better.
And it wasn't too elaborate. Any other comments?
Yeah, Ben and my wife, I think, talked to Jim, and she's a property owner. She didn't have any problems with the variance that was listed here. And the adjacent properties, being Little Doc Custer's facility, I believe Burns' house, really that doesn't really encroach any point there. So from the variance request that it is here, I will recuse myself from the vote, but I don't have an objection.
Would you like to make any comment about the response?
I guess I understand the one or two negative points that have been said this evening. I also understand the fact that this variance has been granted a number of times in the past. So I agree with eventually the village changing their ordinance to reflect the foundation rather than the overhangs.
Yes,
And
it has.
I guess I would just throw myself on the mercy of
With overhangs, I
of
remember.
the council, and just say, hopefully mine isn't the last one that gets denied before you change the code.
From a drainage standpoint, Burns' property now, when Junkie built it, he made some special considerations for culverts, not culverts, catch basins, when they were doing their work. Because there is like between you and Byron's property, there is a fairly good flow, just that's gravity. There. That might be something you want to consider.
Well, the idea would be to shut it to both property lines and then take it out to the road, because that's typical. But even on the back, we'd have to swale it to the sides and try and get that moving as well. Obviously, we don't want to take on somebody else's property.
Is that something you talked to the zoning inspector, to Jim, about?
Is that something we would talk about?
Well, he ought to be involved in
We
that.
haven't talked about it.
Yeah. Well, you should be involved in,
So it's standard
made aware of those
procedure.
decisions.
Yeah, when we engineered the lot in the house, prior to getting zoning and as well as building permits, the engineer will settle the elevation so that it all works, and then everybody signs off on it. And in the end, if it doesn't work, if the engineer draws something that doesn't work, then obviously it's still on me to fix it, to make sure I don't have water running on the neighbor's property as well. Once it gets to the road, there's not a whole lot more I can do with it.
And once it gets to the road, yes, it's a village responsibility, but it's difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can get piping in there, but we can't keep water from coming back and flooding when the lake comes up. I mean, that is one issue that, I mean, the roads people would be happy with that if you could, if you can.
The problem is if you bury a pipe out of the street, I believe it's gonna be underwater here, because it's gonna be wet out there. I would much rather just use a sump pump to pump our foundation water up and out to a higher level. Take it out with the downspouts.
This property isn't in the floodplain, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay, and there, this is brand new, there's no existing foundation
Correct.
on the lot.
And I would suggest not raising the property to the point where you're the hill and everyone's in the valley.
No, definitely not.
I understand taking the earth and coming to the foundation and having it shed away from the house and the settlement and things like that. But I've seen in situations where they've added a foot and a half to the property and everybody else comes down. So that's kind of not very nice.
One last statement, the Roots are landmark builders, as the name of the firm. They've done several properties in the village, they're a quality builder. I think that they have a place they're gonna reside, so I believe that they will do all the proper thought process to make sure that it's done properly for everyone involved.
Yeah, we want to be good neighbors for sure.
I guess I have a different point of view. I've lived in various locales throughout the state of Ohio. And Chippewa was the first location I resided, wherein the overhang was a determining factor as to the footprint of the house, not the foundation. And like you, as a builder, I found that odd. And tried to make a point of trying to determine why the distinction of difference. The conclusion I came to was we originally were designed as a community of cottages. And by desire and inclination, those cottages were modified into homes. They exist on small properties, small footprints. Our infrastructure is lacking in many locations. I think Jim's thought about a potential fire hazard probably has some validity. If not now, then. So when we build a new home, and we built one here in the community, I complied with the restrictions. My concern in granting you a variance is one of setting precedent and the lack or the inability to redress the desires of those who have gone before you, who have complied with our current standard. The inability to fix that. You understand what I'm saying? And to the other point, you'd hate to be the last house denied before we change the code. Unfortunately, every time you change the code, and we've changed them, so, since I've been here. That is unavoidable, unfortunately. So, I do have personal concerns about that, because everyone heretofore has complied with the existing code and its limitations. Occasionally, we will, a couple of you shaking your head. Occasionally, we do provide a variance.
I was just going up on mine and I had to get a variance. My footprint was the same footprint, I just added a second floor and I had to get a variance for a 1 foot overhang, but.
All I'm trying to point out is, we do grant variance, and Alan, you did not go through the list for the council's reflection.
Not yet,
Okay.
not yet, that's my next step.
So, without belaboring it any further, I'd like Alan to kind of go through
There's one more resident in the back that's
The
adjacent who hasn't
considerations
talked or
we as
said
council
anything.
members
I don't know if we should ask him if he's interested. There's
And-
one more
and
adjacent
then
resident
one
sitting in the
thing I-
back who hasn't voiced an
Look,
opinion.
we
I don't know
can,
if we should ask
we
him
can
if he
bring
wants to.
storm sewers in.
Yeah.
That's not that big a problem.
Okay.
But you want the water going out. And if you've ever been at Leelore and Beachside, when we have not really unusual flooding, there's water there. And that's the storm sewer we'd be connecting to. So you could be helping the village out by draining that puddle into your basement, and you really don't want that. And you can put a big one-way check valve in, and I mean, that's all legitimate. But a one-way check valve always plugs up unless it's a manual plug or a manually operated one. And are you gonna be home every time it rains? And are you gonna be willing to shut that baby down every time you go on a vacation? And
No.
so we can get a storm to you, but we can't make sure that it'll take it to a lower spot.
Right, 10 feet. 10 feet.
And how close is the next property?
Hey, Jim, can you speak up? Jim, you can't hear you. I was talking about it's possible that we get an easement through the back area to go over towards Shortfield, since that may be a higher grade to bring out. I'm not really sure. That would have to be something that an engineer would study.
Said the lake level, the lake level.
Monkeys went under the street into our.
Right. Is that able to carry the load from his house? That's what, I don't know that either. But it was just an option, I'm thinking, as a way to get water to run, rather than to come back.
Yeah, are there any other comments?
I have one real quick. I'm Byron. I live on Leelore, and we have a nice porch that we can kind of see just a little view of the water. And I was just wondering how far from the edge of the road up to the foundation house is going to be. I know Jim said 19 feet, but I would just wanted to confirm.
You know, the
Not
foundation.
that I can change anything, just.
Well, he's
wondering.
asking, yeah, it's 20 feet from the right of way. The road may not be all the way to the edge of the right of way, but wherever that edge is, the house has to be set back 20 feet in the front. And
Are you sure the way that, that's the way the code is written, isn't it from the property line?
It's from the property.
Okay,
Which is
the
the
property line and the right of way.
well, that's
are
right.
Two different things.
Well, this looks like the property line's the same as the right of way.
It's not.
Okay,
It is here, yes.
I thought it was here.
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out, because my lot is 90 feet from the edge of the road to the end of the property. But they're technically 40 by 80 lots, right? So.
Depends.
Your property's not from the edge of the road, it's from the edge of the right of way.
Sure, no, I understand that.
Correct.
I'm just looking from the edge of the road to the edge of the property line.
Okay, just for correction.
It's from the
If you
property.
go to the Medina Auditor's website, you will notice that every place that there's a road in the village owns 40 feet width. The roads are never that wide, but standardized roads in municipalities, along with other considerations, that at some point was what the road width was designed to be. So the village owns 40 feet down the corridor of every one of these streets is located. In our particular property.
It's
that
the
means
dentist
that
office.
15 feet from the edge of the road.
The old dentist
And all it's
office.
supposed to be is 5 feet from the lot lines.
I have a 20-foot setback from that.
And this is gonna be less.
So I got a 35-foot setback from my house.
Correct.
Across the street, it's only 5 feet to the property lines, and the right of way is, what is the right of way distance from the edge of the road, Keith?
I'm sorry?
Varies.
Right away distance from the edge of the road.
Absolutely.
All over the place.
We don't do. The property lines.
Right.
On these roads are 40 feet, not from the center of the road, because not all the roads are down the center of the corridor. And, you know, I have maps that show our particular area and in fact, the property we're talking about here, that shows where the property lines are. And, that makes a big difference.
It looks
So
like on the map.
on their street, they have to look, the property line is very close to the street on their side. It's probably the 5 feet. It's further away side.
Yeah, I've got a list of all the right of ways, and they go anywhere from 30 feet to 50 feet, 60 feet, depending on where you're at. They're not all the same. On Leland, this says they're 40 feet.
Yeah.
In the village here.
You can see the lines
property lines
clearly
is
here.
what we use for
Right.
setbacks.
Yeah.
So when someone's going
Here.
to build something.
This is
Right.
my
I
house, so
ask
it's
them
got
to give
15 feet,
a survey.
but the village
Mark
owns
out
that
those
first 15 feet.
Exactly, and the road isn't in the center or
Correct.
even half of
Right
the
of
right of
way
way.
is
So I have a
So you go
35
from-
foot setback from the edge of the road.
But you need 20.
your property and the property across the street.
It's gotta be from
That's the right
Okay,
of
we
way.
On the
can't hear
property
what's
line.
happening on this
Right.
part of the road.
Okay, are we ready to move on? Anybody else want to make a comment for the record?
Well, I actually asked Jim to send me the map, and the setback is from their property line, not the right of way.
Right.
There is more room from their property line to the road, so that must be the right of way, if I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah, it looks to be about 10 feet from the edge of the road to the edge of the right of way,
Right.
and then 20 feet back from that.
Right,
So like 30.
Yeah, I can show you this one.
but that's from the road you're talking, but you're right about the property line and the right of way. It's from the property line.
I did talk to the surveyor when he was making that, and he actually had to go find not the center line, but you see that shaded area represented here. The center of the road was not the center of the property line, that's what I'm trying to say. So if you see it's kind of offset there, but I assume the drawing is accurate. So rather than just going for the pins, they have to go measure the roadway to make sure they did it properly. So I think that they did their due diligence from a surveying standpoint to do that. The other comment I had on the only variances I know that we did not grant on the overhang were fire safety issues. Pure houses were really close together. There's no, at least with the construction of the two houses that are adjacent there, there's no safety issue from a fire department standpoint.
How close is this gonna be to the surrounding buildings, like the dentist's office or Leslie's house? I noticed, go to Alan Robbins' house, Leslie's deck is practically in that dentist's office. So you put this other structure there, how close is that gonna be to the rest of Byron's house?
15 feet from the full dentist.
And from Leslie's deck?
I would say at least,
It's nowhere near Leslie's deck because it's actually offset 30 feet from.
Up to the side more?
Yeah.
Byron's house?
Byron's got
There's a lot in
some
between.
lots, I think, between, right?
There's 120 feet between us and.
Yeah, there's some math. It's just my view. I think.
Well, everybody's worried about the same thing. But anyway.
Unfortunately, obstructing the view isn't one of our reasons to deny things.
No, no, I
Because
get
we've
it.
had a lot of people say that over the years, and it's unfortunate, but not a valid reason.
Okay, are we ready for a vote on this? Joanne?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a setback variance, basically, and it's subject to conditions which the Supreme Court of Ohio has set down. These are factors to consider. No one is determinative, but they are the factors you should consider in making a decision on this variance. One, will the property yield a reasonable return, or can there be a beneficial use of the property without a variance? Two, Is the variance request substantial? 3, will the essential character of the neighborhood be substantially altered? Or will adjoining properties suffer a substantial detriment by granting this variance? 4, will the variance adversely affect the delivery of governmental services? 5, did the property owner purchase the property with knowledge of the zoning requirements? 6, can the problem be solved by some other manner than granting a variance? And 7, will the granting of the variance preserve the spirit and intent of the zoning requirements with substantial justice served by the granting of the variance? And the weight of these and importance you're to decide. So, calling for a vote, I would call for a vote from council to approve the variance or deny it. And if you want to put conditions on it, now's the time to suggest them.
Can we put a condition that the overhang doesn't change in the plans more than a foot?
Sure.
Is that a thing?
That's possible, yeah. I mean, the overhand looks like it's short here, isn't it?
1 foot, yeah.
1 foot. Well, that's a condition of it because that's in his plan.
Okay,
But could it be changed?
but could it be
later on?
changed later?
Well, we want to put a deck on the
Not
back,
likely.
and we want to put the, you know. add-
Well, if you have a deck that's not compliant, you could apply for a variance.
Get a variance on variance.
A variance, yes. But I think the overhang's in the plans, which means it's part of this permit.
Okay.
So we ready for a vote? Do we have a roll call?
Roll call.
And vote either approve or deny the variance.
Bud, Barb,
Yes,
deny or you approve?
approve.
Alan, or you want to vote? Tabitha?
Approve.
Keith?
Deny.
Ken?
Approve.
We have 3 approves, 2 denies.
Well, that's only 5 votes. Oh, we have an abstention too.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that would be an approval. 3-2.
I guess your next job is change zoning code. Point of having it.
No big deal. No. So Jim will issue, the zoning inspector will issue a letter on this, formal letter.
Okay, do we have anything else for zoning?
I have a question. Permit. It says permit approved.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how this process works, but I put in one for 253 Bungalow Bay on May 29th by mail and by email.
By email?
And by,
I saw his email, I know he sent them.
I sent it regular mail from the post office box that's on the app, which is 10 or 10.
I do not have, I haven't received it.
That's like the second person I was saying that to. Maybe they got the wrong email on there or something.
When was, oh, I have your zoning permit application by email, but that's not how it works. I have to send by mail, but you said you sent it by mail that time.
God, it didn't.
Yes.
It's there.
Is PO Box 10 correct?
That is correct. So maybe in the mailbox right here.
You sent it in
I
May?
haven't checked this.
You sent it in May? You sent it in
He said he
May?
sent
May
it
29th.
regular mail too. Should be enough.
Jerry, where do you pick up the mail?
I get the mail from the zoning box, and I checked it last week, and there was nothing in there. Or no, I take that back, there was the, party was the last, from Tuesdays, Wednesdays.
Can you give it to him tonight?
Okay, now this person that came to my house